Subject-Verb-Object. Subject-Verb-Object, SVO, is a common sentence structure for most languages, where the subject comes first, the verb second, and the object third. Let's take a look at the first example. In English, you would have to follow a strict order, SVO. I will talk to you about it tomorrow. However, some languages are more complicated, for example, Russian. The Russian language allows all possible combinations, SVO, OVS, SOV, and so on. A Russian speaker would follow a different sentence order. For example, he would say, I to you tomorrow about it will talk. Let's start with the verb. Verbs are necessary for all English sentences. For example, the curious toddler popped a grasshopper into her mouth. Popped is a verb. The important thing to remember is that every subject in a sentence must have a verb. Otherwise, you will have a fragment, a major writing error. There are two types of verbs, action verbs and linking verbs. Action verbs. You should know an action verb when you see one. Dance, sing, paint, giggle, chew. What are these words doing? They are expressing action, something that a person, animal, force of nature, or thing can do. As a result, words like these are called action verbs. Let's look at the examples below. John sneezes with the force of a tornado. Sneezing is something that John can do. You should also know a linking verb when you see one. Linking verbs, on the other hand, do not express action. Instead, they connect the subject of a verb to additional information about the subject. For example, Mario is a computer hacker, where is a linking verb. Ising is not something that Mario can do. The verb is connects the subject Mario to additional information about him, a computer hacker. You must remember that verbs can have more than one part. In fact, a verb can have as many as 4 parts. A multipart verb has a base or main part as well as additional helping or auxiliary verbs with it. Check out the examples below. Harvey spilled chocolate milkshake on Leslie's new dress. We have one verb, spilled, past tense. Next, Harvey is always spilling something. Now we have 2 parts to one verb, is spilling, present progressive tense. Harvey might have spilled the chocolate milkshake. We have 3 parts, might have spilled. And the last example, Harvey should have been spilling the chocolate milkshake down his throat. And now we have one verb, spill, but 4 parts to this. Should have been spilling. Subject. The subject is who or what does the action. In a sentence, every verb must have a subject. If the verb expresses action, like sneeze, jump, bark, or study, the subject is who or what does the action. For example, during his biology lab, Tommy danced on the table. Danced is an action verb. Tommy is who did the dancing. Tommy is the subject. You remember that not all verbs are action verbs. Some verbs are linking. Am, is, are, was, were, seem, become, etc. For example, this bathroom is a disaster. Bathroom is the subject. Is connects the subject to something that is said about it, that the bathroom is a disaster. Let's look at some simple examples. The big alien grabbed a student from the back row. The verb grabbed. Who grabbed a student? The alien. Alien is the subject. Verb is grabbed. We have one subject and one verb. My class is in building 8. Is a verb. It's a linking verb. And it links class with building 8. Therefore, class is a subject. The baby was crying because he was hungry. Crying is an action verb. Who was crying? The baby. The baby is the subject. Was crying is a two-part verb. Also, we have another subject and another verb. Was is a linking verb. Who was hungry? He was hungry. Therefore, in this sentence, we have two subjects, baby and he, and two different verbs, was crying and was. In this slide, we'll try to analyze why it is very important to identify a subject in a sentence. Let's take a look at the first two sentences. My mom speaks two languages. They speak two languages. In two sentences, we have the same verb, speak. However, the verb speak has two different forms. My mom speaks and they speak. In the first sentence, the verb takes an ending S. Why? Because the subject mom is a singular subject, and the rule states if you're using the verb speak in simple present tense, you must add an S to the verb because the subject is a third person singular. In the second sentence, the subject is plural, they. Therefore, the verb speak does not need any endings. The next two sentences, he was reading a book and I am reading a book. The same verb read, however, one sentence has was, the other sentence has am. The first sentence is in the past tense and the subject is he. Because the subject is singular, we're using the past tense form of the verb to be for our singular subject, not for the plural. In the sentence, she hasn't been in Paris and you haven't been in Paris, the first auxiliary verb is has because our subject is singular, she. And the second sentence, you, is a plural subject. Therefore, we need auxiliary verb have. It is important to agree the verb with the subject in a sentence. And for that, you need to identify the subject correctly. And for that, we have a few rules to follow. Some subjects can be simple, contain just one word, or compound, contain more than just one word, or contain phrases, prepositional phrases. In a sentence, the author blank unknown, we're missing a verb to be. How do we know how to conjugate the verb? Should we use is or are? Well, for that, we have to find the subject. And the subject is the author. Author is a single word and it's a singular noun. Therefore, we will conjugate the verb to be accordingly. And for the single subject, we need the single form of the verb to be is. Remember that the subject is never part of a prepositional phrase. The subject of a verb will never be part of a prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase begins with a preposition: in, on, at, between, among, under, etc. And it ends with a noun, pronoun, or gerund. Let's look at this example. The author of these books, blank, unknown. We have a prepositional phrase, of these books. The closest noun to the verb is books, which is plural. Now, does that mean that we should put are unknown? Not necessarily. Remember, of these books is a prepositional phrase. Therefore, it is not our subject. The subject is author. Author is a singular subject, therefore the verb is. In the second example, the authors of these books, blank, unknown. Again, of these books is a prepositional phrase. We cross it out. We're not considering this as part of our subject. The subject is authors, and it's plural. Therefore, the form of the verb to be is are. The authors of these books are unknown. Sometimes a prepositional phrase appears to be either the subject itself or part of the subject. Read the example that follows. Neither of these boys wants to try a piece of pineapple pizza. In this sentence, the boys seem to be the ones who do not want the pizza. But because they are part of a prepositional phrase of these boys, they are not the subject. Neither is the actual subject. Let's look at another example. My dog, along with her 7 puppies, has chewed all of the stuffing out of the sofa cushions. Here, both my dog and her 7 puppies are chewing on the sofa, but because the puppies are part of the prepositional phrase along with her 7 puppies, the only word that counts as the subject is dog.